Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Monday, December 30th, 2024, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today will reach a mild high of 68.0 degrees with a low of 48.2 degrees, making it a pleasant winter day in Southern California. Coming up, we'll examine the tragic details behind South Korea's most devastating aviation accident in recent history. Then, we'll explore what's behind the concerning spike in norovirus cases spreading across the United States. Finally, we'll look at how consumer shopping habits are transforming the retail landscape this year as more people search for better deals and value. All this and more, coming up on Alex's News. We begin with breaking news out of South Korea, where a devastating plane crash has claimed the lives of 179 people. Joining us now with the details is our aviation correspondent Ethan Parker. Ethan, walk us through what happened.
According to multiple reports, including BBC News, Jeju Air Flight 2216, a Boeing 737-800, crashed yesterday morning at Muan International Airport. The flight was returning from Bangkok, Thailand, when it attempted to land without its landing gear deployed. The plane skidded off the runway, hit the airport's perimeter wall, and burst into flames.
What can you tell us about the casualties?
NBC News reports that of the 181 people aboard, only 2 survived. Both cabin crew members who were in the tail section during impact. Among the 179 victims were 173 South Korean passengers, 2 Thai nationals, and 6 crew members. Tragically, the victims included 4 elementary school students, 3 middle school students, 4 high school students, and a young child born in 2021.
What do we know about the moments leading up to the crash?
According to the Financial Times, the pilot, who had over 6,800 hours of flight experience, had actually aborted an initial landing attempt due to a reported bird strike. After issuing a Mayday call, the pilot was cleared to attempt landing from the opposite direction. That's when the tragic crash occurred at approximately 0900 local time.
How are authorities responding to this disaster?
South Korea's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, has declared the area a special disaster zone. Over 1,500 personnel are involved in search and recovery efforts. Jeju Air's CEO Kim Lee-bae has publicly apologized and promised support for the victims' families. The investigation will involve multiple agencies, including the National Transportation Safety Board, Boeing, and the Federal Aviation Administration, working alongside South Korean authorities.
And what about the investigation timeline?
Investigators have retrieved both flight data recorders and cockpit voice recorders, but we're looking at a lengthy investigation process. Experts suggest it could take anywhere from 6 months to 3 years to complete. This marks the first fatal accident for Jeju Air since its founding in 2005, and is South Korea's worst aviation disaster since the 1997 Korean air crash in Guam.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll continue to follow this developing story throughout the morning. Our second story tonight focuses on a concerning surge in norovirus cases across the United States. Joining us to discuss this development is our health correspondent, Chloe Martinez. Chloe, what are you seeing in terms of the numbers?
Thanks, Grace. According to CDC data, we're seeing an alarming spike in norovirus outbreaks. During the first week of December alone, 91 outbreaks were reported at ALA. That's up from 69 in late November, and well above the typical maximum of 65 outbreaks we usually see this time of year.
How is this affecting different regions of the country?
The Northeast is being hit particularly hard, Grace. CBS News reporting shows the region is experiencing cases at 13% above the national average. The West is tracking close to the national average at 12%, while the South and Midwest are faring slightly better at 9% and 10% respectively.
I understand cruise ships have been making headlines with some recent outbreaks. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, that's right. According to recent reports, 455 passengers across several cruise ships have been affected. The Queen Mary II saw the highest number with 138 passengers infected. However, it's important to note that cruise ships actually account for only 1% of all norovirus outbreaks. Healthcare facilities, particularly long-term care facilities and hospitals, are where we're seeing over half of all U.S. outbreaks.
Those numbers are concerning. What should people know about the overall impact of norovirus nationally?
The CDC data shows this is a significant public health issue. Annually, we're looking at 19 to 21 million illnesses, 109,000 hospitalizations, and sadly, about 900 deaths, primarily among adults 65 and older. Young children are particularly vulnerable too, accounting for most of the 465,000 annual emergency department visits.
What about prevention methods? What's most effective?
The CDC emphasizes that good old-fashioned hand washing with soap and water for 20 seconds is crucial. It's worth noting that unlike with COVID-19, masks aren't effective against norovirus. For surface cleaning, they recommend using either bleach solutions or EPA-registered disinfectants specifically approved for norovirus.
Thank you for that comprehensive update, Chloe. We'll continue to monitor this situation. Here are some other headlines. A major political shift has occurred in Syria as the long-ruling Ba'ath Party collapses following the overthrow of President Bashar Assad by insurgent forces. The party has frozen all activities, and many of its leaders have fled the country or gone into hiding. In Afghanistan, the Taliban government has issued a new directive ordering all NGOs to stop employing Afghan women, warning that failure to comply will result in the revocation of their operating licenses. Devastating storms and tornadoes swept across the southern United States over the weekend, claiming 4 lives. Victims included a woman in Texas, an 18-year-old in Mississippi, another person in Lowndes County, Mississippi, and a 70-year-old man in North Carolina. The system caused widespread damage and power outages across multiple states. In Louisiana, a tugboat sank in the Mississippi River after colliding with a tanker ship near the Hale Boggs Memorial Bridge. All crew members were rescued and evaluated by emergency medical personnel. In Moscow, Andrei Komayatov, director of an LGBTQ+ travel agency, was found dead in his pre-trial detention cell. Kotov had been arrested for organizing extremist activity following Russia's recent designation of the international LGBT movement as extremist. Before his death, he reported being subjected to physical abuse during his arrest. And now for our third and final story this morning, we turn to some fascinating retail trends that emerged in 2024. Joining us to discuss this is our business correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, what's been happening in the retail landscape?
Thanks, Grace. According to new research reports released today by Research and Markets, we're seeing a significant shift in consumer behavior, with value-seeking becoming the dominant trend, particularly in markets like Italy and South Africa.
What exactly do we mean by value-seeking, and how is this playing out in these markets?
Well, Grace, in Italy, for example, we're seeing retailers like Pepco gaining substantial market share, especially among older consumers who are becoming increasingly budget-conscious. What's particularly interesting, according to the research, is that this isn't just about finding the lowest prices, It's about maximizing value while maintaining sustainable practices through what's called the circular economy.
And how are South African consumers responding to these economic pressures?
The Research and Markets data shows that South Africa is experiencing similar trends, with the cost of living crisis affecting all age groups. We're seeing innovative responses from retailers there. For instance, there's been a notable partnership between eBucks and Pick n Pay to enhance customer value. And in an interesting development, Shein, the online fashion retailer, opened its first pop-up store in South Africa this year.
How are retailers adapting to these changing consumer demands?
The research highlights 4 key adaptations, Grace. First, there's increased digital integration, combining online and offline experiences. Second, we're seeing more personalization through initiatives like ARD Discounts loyalty apps in Italy. Third, there's a growing focus on sustainable value, where consumers want both economic and environmental benefits. And finally, convenience remains crucial, with innovations like on-demand urban minibuses in Italy meeting this need.
And what's the outlook for these trends moving forward?
According to the research findings, these value-seeking behaviors aren't just a temporary response to current economic conditions. They're expected to continue shaping retail strategies and consumer choices for the foreseeable future, as shoppers increasingly demand both quality and affordability in their purchases.
Thank you for that comprehensive overview, Ethan. Really interesting insights into how consumer behavior is evolving. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.